I want to give a overview of what I'm working on, what I'm interested in. This is July 2021, August 2021, sorry. And it's partly for myself, but also partly for other people so that they can understand the backdrop of the things that I'm saying and doing. Sometimes I notice people can, I suspect that people get a wrong impression or a distorted impression about what it is that I think of as important or what it is that I want to work on. All this comes back to an experience that I had a few years ago now, when I had this experience of being shown a possible reality in the year 2320. So that's 300 years into the future. And although I viewed this as a real experience, for the purposes of this, doesn't really matter whether it's viewed as being real or an imagination. I view it as real. Therefore, for me, it is real. And this is one of the understandings that the experience gave to me, is that reality is very much of what you create. And before you can create a reality, there is an imagined reality. So this is an imagined reality of which I am involved in finding out the reality of it. There was a whole spectrum of the experience, much of which has taken some time for me to digest. And like anybody who was exposed to something which is in the far future, you only need to go into the equal amount of the past to see how difficult that would be. If you took somebody from the 1720s, in the time of Isaac Newton, and before there were railroads, this is before motor cars, before most of the things where people got around on horseback and carriages, as they had done for thousands of years. So explaining to them the world of computers and social media and aeroplanes and things like that, some people might have understood something about it, but people would have viewed it as being fantastical. Likewise, it's taken me some time to frame what I experience in a way that I can understand and maybe other people can understand. So I have viewed these in three different categories, one of which was maybe about the relationship that man has with himself, basically with his life and what life is. Secondly, it's about how man interacts with each other and how we get things done together and individually. And thirdly, it's a set of understandings that come about from a simpler and deeper understanding about the universe and the technology that is available to that deeper understanding. I'll go through each of these three things in detail. I'll start with the first one, which is the easiest way that I can describe it is the notion of the sovereign individual. The notion that I understand about the sovereign individual is that the sovereign part of it is that we are all kings, if you like. We are all sovereign. We are the sovereign in our world. We're individuals. We have something inside us which is of great value. I call this a spark of, I mean, you can call it a spark of God, spark of the Creator, or it's just a spark of the universe, or it's a soul, or it's spirit. You can view it in many different ways. It doesn't really matter what that is, other than it's a reality of inside our life. There is another life, the life which doesn't begin at birth and doesn't end in death. So this other life is an eternal life, or it is a wider life. At one end, you can think of it as in religious terms, or on the other end, you can think of it in purely scientific terms in relation to universal consciousness or universal humanity or whatever. But the reality, I think C.S. Lewis said of this in the past, that we do not have a soul. We are a soul that has a body. So we have this twin aspect to our existence of a physical body, which is born, which is conceived, born, grows up, grows old and dies. And we have this other part of our existence which pre-existed being born, and it exists after we die. And this is the same for everybody. Everybody has this. In fact, every part of creation has this twin aspect to it of a content and a physical reality. But in terms of humanity, it has a few consequences. The few consequences are that all humanity is equal. There is no difference. If you look human, you are human. If you've got 2 arms, 2 legs, it doesn't matter whether you're black, white, green, or whatever, whether you're physically disabled, whether you're paraplegic, or whether you're the Olympic sportsman. If there's a breath of humanity there, you are human. Your view is pretty simple. And what this means is that we have an equal status, that everyone is this representative, has this representation of this spark, is represented, has this representation of this twin reality. Many, many consequences to it, but some of the briefest ones are that, as I say, it means that everybody is equal. There are no higher, no lower. The only difference between the status of this soul and this physical body is that for many people in the world, the spiritual side or the inner side of the world is asleep. So they're only really aware of the bodily side, and it's only at the point of death that they become they realize as the physical body drops away that there is this other side of them. And it's been this is a suspicion of mine in my teenage years and early 20s that there was something, there must be something else, there was something beyond this physical world. And I looked for something and I found it. And this sleeping part of me was woken up. And I've now spent the last 50 years of my life with that part awake. So I understand now something about these two worlds that live together in a human being. Now, this is not, this might be commonly understood in some section of the community, but the difference between now and in 2320 is that this understanding about the dual nature of our lives and the equality that this affords us is, people generally have this understanding. And it's not just a minority view. The second part of this experience is about an organization or an entity that actually was the biggest thing around in the 2320s, and I call it the foundation. That's what I understood it was called, the foundation. And it is a mechanism whereby people cooperate with each other and get things done. So if you want to get things done, you work with, you can work with the foundation. Foundation makes resources available to you, and you work inside it and with it, and it's the mechanism that people, through which people cooperate. This is a distributed body without hierarchy, although it is ubiquitous. In other words, it is something which is in the lives of every human being. There isn't anybody that controls it. It's not something, it is a completely distributed governance that is available to people at a local community level, and it is available to mankind at a top level. I can't say that I understand all the details, but I do know that this is a fundamentally different structure to what we have in the 2020s. This means that it means that much of the structures that we have in the 2020s fall away because the foundation takes over the responsibility. There is no real need for the political hierarchy that exists, particularly relating to the nation state. Doesn't really survive. The nation state doesn't really survive this reality. That's the foundation. The last part of this experience is relating to, it's an understanding about what reality is and what the physical world is made up of. And it's a way whereby technology, the easiest to describe the technology exists whereby you can go from A to B without traveling between A and B. The technology brings A and B together so that you can move instantaneously from A to B without traveling in the space in between A and B. Whether it's viewed as like folding space or I think it can be described as at a higher dimension, all spaces are linked together. Therefore, they can be described at a higher dimension as being brought together. This allows, it allows the wide expansion of humanity across the local universe. So from my understanding, the 2320s, the mankind is already moving within the nearest 50 odd local star systems. So it's spread out, but also interconnected. So this is all very well. So I've said, well, so okay, that's very interesting. It's an interesting idea about the future. Well, what does it mean for me? What's the purpose of me experiencing this? Well, what I've found is that for me, what is interesting, or what I feel motivated to do, is to say, okay, that's a reality which is fully formed 300 years from now, but all of those understandings are nascent. They're in the seed stages now in the 2020s. And what I now find interesting is to be looking everywhere for the origins of these technologies and these understandings. And again, what's the purpose of that? Well, in my understanding, for me at least, it is a way of creating a reality which answers the question for me of what is the point of it all? What is going on? What is the purpose of the life that I live? What is the purpose of human life? What is the destiny of humanity? So these are the things that have been driving me, and I've been looking really since I was 18. So going back to each of them, the first of these has come really around by me being opened in Subud, and most Subud members would understand that the concept of the sovereign individual is there, that there is a life within a life, but what often isn't understood, even in Subud at the moment in the 2020s, is the consequence of that. If they actually take the time to consider what's the consequence of everybody in the world having this spark of God inside them, so that there is no such thing as higher or lower, or better or worse. Everybody is the same, because everybody has a spark of a creator inside them. There is no higher or lower, they're all equal, they're all different. Our uniqueness and our talents and all those things are an integral part of this specialness that is made up of the sovereign human being, sovereign individual. So this thing of equality, uniqueness is a difficult concept to grasp, but it is fundamental, so that we're all equal, we're all unique. Nobody is higher or lower. We all have a combination of talents and abilities which are unique to ourselves. The positive thing about that is that if we fully energize that, we are the best at the world at some combination of these, because we're unique. This is and I have understood the reality of that. There are things that I know I'm really very good at, and it's not me bragging, it's just that I know I have a talent in these directions, and I pursue those, and I have the confidence when I'm in that genre to know that I know what I'm talking about, because I have both the inner and outer experience of it, the inner reality. But that I have been at it long enough now to know that I am actually pretty good at it. So in that field, I'm working in the field of architectural work, of showing the way to develop property, and I know I'm pretty good at it, and I do that, and it's really no difficulty for me to do it. The second thing, so that really is covered the first thing of the sovereign human being. Although there is much more to be understood on that. The deeper you go into the consequences of this sovereignty, is the consequences of it become more and more both surprising and important. So at an individual level, there is a vibration in this spiritual world, which you can feel in the physical world. And I often now feel it. It's not just a product of doing Lattihan, it's a product of, well, it's like a gift. Sometimes I feel it, sometimes I don't, but I feel it more and more in my life. There's the vibration of something inside which produces a state of peace and quietness and contentment. I view it now, I mean, I've put words to it, as being in contact with grace. This is this grace is in the world. It's part of what I believe Bapak's mission was when he came into the world, was to open up this world, this physical world, to grace. And I think that's his, maybe not his only achievement, but his principal achievement is that he has opened the way for humanity to feel this grace of Almighty God. And that is by far and away the most important thing that we have. So secondly, the foundation. The foundation is about, it has a number of different consequences. If you imagine an institution which is powerful and is available to you through a very small number of steps, and you know at some level that this produces both a safety net at one end, and it produces an opportunity at the other end. So if you want to do something, if you have some burning desire to do something, there is a way for it to be achieved, and this is available. I have seen this now, and one of the things that I've been doing is looking at the origins of this foundation in the world in the 2020s. And the closest that I've got to it has been the understanding of the Cardano Foundation, which I could see at some time in the future it could have billion members. It's currently got 1 million members. It's got a capital value in tens of billions of dollars, and it's only been going for a short period of time, but people put their money. It's like if you imagine a bank, that you put money into a bank, and then you can work with other people who put money into that bank about how that money is used in order for the value of that money to be, the value of that investment to be protected, and for it to be available to the widest section of society available. I mean, it encompasses the welfare state, it encompasses finance institutions. It has a very wide range of opportunity. So lastly, I wanted to just say something about where I find this, and I find that this is evident in the scientific community. I subscribe to some of the foremost journals in the scientific community, so not all of it I understand, but I occasionally come across things where I have the aha moment, and I had that aha moment with the concept of this Cardano Foundation. But more than that is that I've found that the quest of understanding based on the best scientific people in the various fields is the way to go. And I find that within podcasts, and see it within podcasts of people like Jordan Peterson, Lex Friedman, Cool Worlds Lab Professor Kipping, Sean Carroll, half a dozen other people who have podcasts where they have conversations with other people in their fields and elsewhere, showing and describing the frontiers of science today. And through that, I get confirmation of this reality, which is emerging, which comes to full fruition in a few hundred years from now. And that's also the case in this last category of the understanding of the reality in which we live in. I'm not saying this is the final understanding, but for instance, the concept of the string theory is that at the heart of the material world there is a vibrating string. There are vibrating strings, and this is the core of the material universe. There is nothing there other than a certain vibration at a very basic level, and this gets on to generate everything else. Now, Wapak, he talked about the reality of there being a vibration at the heart of the material universe, and this is what string theory talks about. But also one of the products of string theory, which is interesting and which has consequence, I think, towards the reality which I've intimated to before, is that it postulates a number of other dimensions other than the 3 or 4 dimensions that we generally exist in. Higher dimensions, lower dimensions, dimensions off to the side, places which appear to be inaccessible to us now. They exist. So I think this is a core part of bringing the physical world together, is the exploration of these other dimensions and the notion of this vibration, but the vibration that exists at the heart of the material world. So this is what I'm interested in. Other things that I've come across that they're against this backdrop. For instance, the regeneration efforts that we've looked at in Sheffield, the Feed a Million opportunity, the Mars colonies. These are all stepping stones towards this realization of this wider 2320 reality. One of the things which is a product of humanity spreading out across the universe is that is only possible if we crack the idea, the concept of sustainability and self-sufficiency. You can only have colonies everywhere, thousands and thousands and thousands of colonies everywhere, if the basic needs of the colonists, the people living, are are produced locally, and that's basically is the energy and food. If you can produce your local needs on energy, and you can produce your local needs of food, and you can protect yourself against whatever elements you come across, then it is possible for you to develop a self-sufficient community. This allows humanity to be spread into thousands and thousands and thousands of local places. It allows people to find a full expression of their cultural identity. But it also starts somewhere, and this is not a reality that exists in the 2020s, but it is something. If this is why I'm interested in Mars, it's will be the first colony that is not possible for it to be fed from Earth. It has to be self-sufficient. It has to be self-sufficient in energy. Has to be self-sufficient in food. And the consequence of that has many consequences back here on Earth. If you can create self-sufficient community on Mars, you can create a self-sufficient community in Sheffield or in Attercliffe or wherever. So I find these are all experiments within that broader context which I described. So that's all that I really wanted to say, and this is really available to the people that I know, so that they can understand the basics of what goes on in my mind and why I'm interested in the things that I'm interested in. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.